Jetzt. So, welcome everybody to our new NMS Prime Insights, ISP Insights podcast. My name is Martin Zimmerling. I'm here instead of Thorsten, so I hope no one will miss him too much from our last episodes. But our co-founder and CEO, of course, has a lot of obligations and he wants to put this podcast topic onto several shoulders. And I'm very glad to be the first one to do this on behalf of Thorsten here. And I'm also very happy to welcome our today's guest, which is Henry Schiemann, who has a whole bunch of experience. So if you look into his vita, you think it's never going to stop. And I wonder if, Henry, if there's anything which you haven't worked in or haven't been to. I don't know.
Almost.
I
I
will
have been in.
explore yourself the opportunity, Henry. So everyone of our listeners who don't know you, Henry, who are you?
So thanks, Martin, for the introduction and for the invitation to participate in this podcast. Yes, as Martin said, I have been a long time around with telecommunications, almost 4 decades now. I have worked in all in different aspects of the telecommunication from the good old days when we didn't even speak about the internet. And I have been consulting or work with telecom operators of different sizes, tier one operators, also with electric utilities when they were about to enter the telecom market, and the the old let's say telephone system. So, and I have been working mostly in Latin America, in Europe, and in Asia and parts of the Middle East.
Yeah.
That's a brief summary of my, let's say, of my experience. And I'm all interested in looking into the future, what telecommunication will bring to us, and how can, let's say, the human, how can we benefit from it in general, how the population can benefit from it. Those are aspects that cannot be neglected. It's not just the technology, because there is a purpose behind the technology.
Absolutely, yeah. Henry, from our previous talks, or I mean, we know each other for quite a while now. So I know, I guess it's no secret to mention here that you originate or you grew up in Latin America.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe you want to say a few things about it because this is also going to be one of our.
Right, that's also a reason why I'm interested in Latin America. I grew up in Colombia, in Bogota,
Yeah.
and I attended a German high school because my father, he was German. Afterwards, I did my studies in electrical engineering in the US at Cornell. And after finishing my studies, I came to Europe to get to know my second country, Germany. So that's my relationship to Latin America. And I always try to keep that connection and to keep up to date with what's going on down there because of this, let's say, historical or familiar reason. So
Like
that's the reason.
your personal background here, right?
Exactly, more my history.
So this also, from my understanding, tells us that as long as you're part of the telecommunication industry, this time you mostly spent in maybe America and Europe, I guess.
Exactly, mainly American, Latin America and Europe mainly, right?
Yeah.
In different
And
projects. And what we wanted to discuss in this podcast is to to make an assessment about how the telecommunication, how it is doing in Latin America,
yeah,
and do some comparisons with respect to Germany and in general to Europe, because there are, even so we think all the countries or the world is at the same level, there are still gaps, and the conditions are different in
yeah,
Latin America with respect to Europe and so on. And so it's important to try to understand these issues, where are the differences and where the continent is heading to.
hmm. Um,
Because
yep.
if we make a quick, let's say, introduction about the market or how it looks in Latin America,
Yeah.
we see that there are huge gaps because of the cost of the telecommunications, of introducing the technologies, the availability of the service, the quality, and the coverage.
Yeah.
One main difference with respect to here in Europe is the urban and rural regions. They are totally different, like two different worlds. When we think about, we talk about here in Europe, we always think about mostly the urban settings, urban conditions, but rural conditions are in Latin America even, let's say, even worse than here in Europe.
Yeah.
Also, another aspect that shouldn't be underestimated is the data protection issue. This is also a very important aspect. And we also see that Latin America is the fastest growing internet market. It's growing very fast, and the penetration is, let's say, is increasing. But the main problem, as I said before, is the high cost of the service, not due to the, let's say, limitations of the people. They cannot afford the service and say, okay, I just subscribe. I don't care. I mean, so this is a limitation. That's the main reason what prepaid services are, let's say, the demand is higher than for fixed broadband services. That's very important to know.
Yeah, Henry,
another issue that what I wanted to say about regarding the broadband is the optical fiber, because it's really clear that the deployment of optical fiber is critical for providing broadband. But in some countries, there are government initiatives. For example, in Argentina and Brazil, they do it as part of the government. In other countries, they leave it to the private sector, like in Colombia. So we have these different conditions and settings.
Yeah. Henry, you already covered a whole bunch of aspects here. So first question, maybe direct to your last statement. Do you see any superior like approach to bringing fast internet to the people also in rural regions in Latin America? So may it be the governmental approach or the private sector, or
there are some initiatives that I found out about it. One initiative in one country that is moving, that is making a huge effort, is Peru, where I found out. For example, there is an initiative from Facebook, the International Development Bank, and Telefonica, and they are deploy more towers in order for this rural community to access to have internet access or telecom internet access. I also found out that there is also an initiative over satellite, also in Peru, between Andiasat and Intelsat. So they are partnering together, and what they are doing is that there is an operator that has a license to provide for the rural areas.
Yeah.
And in this case, the parameters are different, because here the cost structure is different, and one of the points, or before I continue, I wanted to mention that what they are providing in rural areas is 3G access. We are talking about 3G. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So they are not. And this project that I mentioned before, Andiasat and Intelsat, they provide 3G access to around 154 rural communities in Peru. That's already a good potential.
So what I was about to say, this sounds for me like it's always or I guess most promising approaches might not be necessarily the one or the other, state or private companies, but I think it's all about combining forces and energy, bringing a lot of players together.
Exactly. It's important that
interests. Yeah.
Exactly. That's important that they join forces in
Yeah.
the different models, because one of the issues is, let's say, the financing. How should it be financed? So you have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be creative. Some countries, they are doing it to subsidies. So when you win a bid, you can subsidize it. Another problem or another issue is, how do we define quality control? Is it important that the network fulfills the quality of service that we are used in,
Yeah.
let's say, in the developed world? But that's not really the issue. It's more important to have the service. So you are willing to sacrifice some quality of service in
Yeah.
order to have the service.
Yeah.
Another issue that is important are the outages. In Latin America, there is no power supply, let's say, or the electricity is not always available.
Yeah.
That means, especially in rural areas, I mean, in the cities, it's already a problem, but they have lost it with through diesel generator. But if we are talking in rural areas, they don't have a diesel generator in each house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are all restrictions. Also, not only the power supply, also the electrification, but also the service itself. Because in some countries, we have to, I mean, I don't want to go into politics and so on, but some countries restrict the usage of the internet depending on the political situation.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
might plug it off. So it's
This is,
not
this is
just
definitely
the
another aspect, Henry. I also
other aspect.
have some personal experience with one with some countries from Africa, which I experienced, like all of you just said in first hand. So we are very used to have all this infrastructure here up and running all day long, especially power supply. And the places where I've been, it's like you just said, no power, even no water, of course for the poorest. So they have completely different problems so far, but yet or still they, like everyone has a mobile device, so and some mobile connectivity, and I'm not sure if this is the right solution for the people, especially when you're thinking of all those prepaid concepts. I think it's also very important to look behind the curtains and see what's like what's the main purpose of providing the service. Is it like maximizing profits, or is it like really getting people online all over the place? Do you have some?
Yeah, that's the issue, because
Yeah.
people want to access services. For example, I know it from Africa, and that where they started the online payments using the mobile phone. That was where they did the trials.
Yeah.
So in some countries, or also in Latin America, it's the case. It's not only just for socializing. It's also for being able to be connected to the world, to have
Yeah.
access to banking services,
Yeah.
to have access
Knowledge.
to education, to
To,
health.
yeah.
This is a critical issue,
Yeah.
because I mean, even here in Germany, where in some countries, remote locations, there is not a doctor that you can go to. The next one could be 20 kilometers or 50 kilometers away.
Yeah.
So using, for example, telehealth with a good communication link, then you can just do an instant consultation, and that's the case also applies to Latin America.
Yeah.
So there is really a need to be connected. It's not, and it's important that that
Yeah.
these communities, let's say, this population is also access. Another problem that I found out is the problem with uh, the 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 problem, the involvement of those communities, because when they do the planning for these rural communities, the people that do the planning sit somewhere in the city at the desk, and and most of the time they don't know the issues, what's happening out there. So unless you involve the community and you have some leaders in those communities that they know the problem they have, what they need, then it will work out. That's something that has to change.
Yeah. Um, so I agree on the importance of the internet. It's not only about yeah, like social messaging and gaming, of course, but there's a whole lot of applications.
Exactly.
I guess all of our listeners know this. I want to go back maybe shortly to this situation which we discussed, which we both know from our visits to Africa, like no power supply, water supply, and so on. Can you give us a few insights? What's your impression or experience? What's the situation in Latin America? And maybe it's not that worse here, but you said there are still differences between rural areas, especially also in Latin
I mean,
America.
from my own experience being in that I have gone also to rural areas, let's say when I have been there, it's mostly on vacation, let's say. So it's
Yeah.
in a pleasant environment and not really rural, but not extreme rural. And
Hmm.
I have experienced that if I want to go to the internet, it doesn't work, or you have a very slow speed connection, or if you are connected, suddenly there is a blackout, and so
Blackout.
on. So those are situations that are, let's say, in many rural areas commonplace. And there are also some places, some rural areas, they don't have any electricity at all. And if they don't have any electricity,
Okay.
how do you expect them to have any
Yeah.
telecommunications?
Yeah.
So those are solutions that you have to have dedicated solutions. I know what they have done in some places is to have maybe provide the service on a limited time basis. Let's say, for example, in the morning hours we provide the service, and in the evening, and they have some diesel generators
Yeah.
to make sure that the power supply is there.
Yeah.
But of course, that this is not the optimal situation, but it's better to have something than nothing at all.
Mhm.
And that's how I see it. But it's really
I, I
still a long way to go
Yeah,
how
I
to
also
do
have
it.
some example here in this area. I mean, for places where you even have the power supply issue in first place, um, you might have this power for a certain amount of time, and other days of times of the day not. You could also think of like storing content or making them available on some local servers as well. Like if you're thinking of a school, they could use like some information out of Wikipedia or whatever, just as an example, to be stored there regionally. Um, yeah, until you get the connection back, right? So yeah, there are a lot of
Exactly.
different solutions you need to think of. I also like the idea of involving the communities here. Um, you want to say some more words about this? Well, what they can bring or should bring to the table? You got this example with
Because the
the
people,
planners from the
right?
city.
Because exactly because they know exactly what their needs are. They know, for example, let's say if I'm sitting at my desk and I know a community, whatever rural area, I don't know how many kilometers away from here, I might think that that's what they need. I might assume they need internet connection for 1,000 people or whatever. And then afterwards, when they go there, they realize actually they need internet connection for 100 people, but they are all spread out.
Yeah,
So how do we get to target them? So I make assumptions that are not realistic, and
mm,
therefore, if unless they get involved in the process, you
yeah,
cannot provide a proper, or let's say a more tailored service to their needs, and that's very critical. Also, what should be also what should be considered is a model between where the service provide where the vendors, the operators,
mhm,
in the regions they cooperate and make sure that they get some model where it's attractive for them to provide the service. For example, it might be the case that one of the vendors say, oh, this is a right environment to test my equipment under those circumstances. So for them, it would be really a benefit. But you have to explore. But you have to really have to work together. You have to cooperate, or regulation also has to be adjusted. You cannot have regulation that applies. Let's say it applies to all. So
yeah,
you have to have special regulation only for this specific case of rural areas with some incentive. Also, for example, another issue is the use of the spectrum. How do you manage the spectrum in those areas? I mean, it's in the city, it's in urban areas, it is critical because of the limitation of the frequency and the heavy use of the frequencies of the spectrum. So you have you need more restrictions and you have to manage it differently. But over there, when hardly anybody uses, let's say, when there wouldn't be any congestion at all.
Yeah.
Then it's critical. Then you need different conditions.
Um, I I also see this point which you just mentioned, like you could use incentives maybe, or you have to think of certain regulations, because typically if you leave it just only up to the market, I guess naturally you might reach 90%, 95%, or even above percentage of population. But if you're thinking of every human shall be online one day, there's always this last percentage, and I feel like with our today's approaches, they might be forgotten, right? So
exactly, they are neglected or they're forgotten. Yeah, let's say.
What do you think about the
But
concept, or maybe do you have some experience here as well? I don't know, of thinking of those forgotten regions, rural areas, of maybe empowering them as a community with 100 houses, things like this, to becoming like an ISP on their own, like to somebody is there who can learn the things necessary to do, and he is like
they
having.
did something like that. As far as I know, they did something like that in Mexico through the indigenous community, and they were able, because they didn't have any internet at all, no telecommunications, and they got a license to operate a network, and they were able to launch the service and say and they saved 98% of the cost they would have paid if a commercial operator would have done it.
This is a really nice.
So it is possible.
Yeah.
So the type of models, because I mean, these are people, they have to be integrated somehow, or let's say they cannot be neglected, and they should have also their, let's say, their right and access to the internet. Because when we are talking in the past, as we recall, when we were talking about only telephony, and that was the requirement in the past, just have a line to make a phone call. But nowadays, phone calls are not really the main purpose of having an internet connection. It's mostly data, because people don't communicate really. Maybe the older generation, they are still used to voice, but the younger generation and so on, they don't phone. They always they send WhatsApp or whatever other text messages and so on. They only do data communication, and in some cases they make a phone call, but it's not the case. It's really like funny. In the past, when you made phone calls, you kept them short because they were too expensive. Now that you can have unlimited phone calls, you don't make the phone calls and you only make short phone calls. So it's like a contradiction, but that's how the market evolved.
I like this. I like this look back into the past, also compared to other technologies. As you said, the phone, because we here in our region, we have a perfect example. So I'm originating from the eastern part of Germany, and in the days, last 40 years of the last century, we had a different political system here, and there was a lot of restrictions, and people they started building out those communities here to back in those days to receive television signals, also from outside of their world, and this all was, let's say, under the radar and built with everyone in the neighborhood. They were digging under the ground, bringing the wires there, and everything that you need to bring your broadcast and TV signal also to these homes. And those concepts, they really worked in a good way, and they are still alive up to the present day. Not this much of usage, of course, but this is also one of the beginnings for internet providers here in our regions, which use those networks nowadays. And just to use this idea, maybe rethink it or think it also towards the future. How can this be done with internet access? in rural regions.
Right. But when we think about it, I have some figure here. The 3.8 billion people don't have access to the internet. That's about half of the population don't have access to the internet. And also half of the world's population live in rural areas. That's something that we should consider.
Yeah.
We always think that mostly people live in urban areas, but half of the population live in rural areas.
This doesn't really sound like the last 5%, right?
No,
This is like a
not the last, that it's more than that.
yeah. This
So
is way
it's
more,
really,
and somehow there might also be a market, maybe. So
there is a market, exactly, there is a
yeah,
market. But of course, there's always the market, let's say the operators, they want to provide the market where they get the highest, let's say, return of investment.
revenue, right? Yeah.
And that's mostly in the urban areas because they can deploy whatever infrastructure and get more subscribers and more out of a subscriber than you can get in remote locations. That's what they don't have interest in doing it. So
Yeah.
as we said before, unless they have incentive to do something, they won't do it.
Hmm.
And that's, let's say, I mean, if I'm a private company, I look at my numbers and I say, I made my calculations, and then I see, it doesn't pay off. Then I invest somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But here maybe
but
also something is on the radar or in the sky. So there are new concepts
yeah,
bringing internet like backbone connections, maybe also via satellite or other projects. I think everyone heard about those until the present day, and I'm really looking forward what this will bring or what changes this will bring, because if you have way cheaper possibilities to connect those people in those areas where typically won't dig under the ground, bringing a fiber there, this might really be a
right,
game changer, of course. Yeah, also for those forgotten people, let's say it like this. Henry, maybe
exactly.
we can have a brief look again of what you said earlier. You've been also talking about the cost or the buying power of people. Typically, you can use the GNP for those information. Um, Here in Germany, I would say like everyone can afford the internet. Here we have other
Exactly.
problems. It's just technologically not this high-end quality in the last sector. So, what's your personal experience maybe again with Latin
In
America?
Latin America, it's not really possible for the population to afford to afford a fixed line, let's say fixed line connection. That's not possible. And
Um,
what they do, for example, I mean, it might seem funny, but I see it, I see it in Colombia. I don't know in other Latin American countries I have seen it. For example, when you are on the street in the city, there are people that sell on their mobile phone. You can use their mobile phone. They sell minutes to you
yeah,
because the public, let's say the coin telephones, the old ones, they disappeared. You can hardly see anyone. So
yeah,
you want to make a phone call, and because some people don't have not even a mobile phone, they just go to them and say, yeah, I want to let me use your mobile phone, and they just look at their watch or whatever, say, oh yeah, you just, and they say, okay, 3 minutes, whatever money it costs.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where you see that not even having a phone or a prepaid phone is possible for a lot of people.
Yes,
So
this is
there's still
typically
a
also
gap.
not the kind of business also the government wants to see because I guess typically they don't see it with respect to their bank accounts. Let's say it like this. Yeah, but,
Exactly. Yeah, it's a limitation.
yeah,
But for example, if we have some data here, for example, Latin America is ranked fifth in the world of broadband penetration. So it's not really ahead; it's really far behind regarding broadband penetration, with respect to the other regions.
yeah,
But for example, I have a data from 2019. In 2019, for example, 95% of the population was covered by a 3G network. There's a good coverage, 95%, but
mm,
only 88% by 4G.
mm,
And And in 2020, last year, 32% of the connections were made through a 3G network, but only 51% through a 4G network. And the speed that for broadband in 2020 was around 22 MB, the average.
For Latin
Which is
America?
for Latin, that's the average speed, let's say, for right.
Yeah.
So in Korea, it's 100 over like 110 MB.
Yeah.
In Latin America, the average is 20 MB.
Yeah.
But what we saw, or what we see, or was seen, is due to the pandemic, to the COVID, to the virus, the rules really change, because now they're now, let's say, the limitations or the advantages of the telecom networks were really shown.
Yeah.
Because if we go to the 5G, I mean, we are talking I mean, it's we have the feeling that 5G is spreading all over the world, and say, oh, 5G, yeah, of course 5G is a 5G.
Mhm.
But if we look at Latin America, people are not, I mean, they are doing some trials with 5G, but 5G is not really going to not the big deal at the moment.
Not widely deployed. Yeah.
But now, because it wasn't being pushed 5G, because there was no real need, no real business case behind it. But now, with the pandemic, when people have to do home office and homeschooling and so on, there is a need for more bandwidth, wireless bandwidth to the fixed network, and that can only be achieved through 5G. So that means 5G is getting as a boost because of this condition. And I hear from some expert about the cost of 5G and so on, because the question is, are people willing to pay for 5G? And actually, the question is not are they willing, but the issue is people see the need for 5G. Some of these people of let's say, because of the subscriber of the population, for them is they should not paying for 5G, but having the service. So first I want the service, and I don't care I don't care really how much it costs. I'm willing to pay that extra cost because I need the service, and that's what will happen. But the way I see, we will see 5G only in urban areas,
Yeah.
in the largest cities. There is no questions about it.
Yeah. I mean, those are quite parallel topics, I guess, to also wire-based internet solutions. But it's obvious, I think, that for a country, it's like an essential factor to having internet high quality and a lot of like everywhere possibly. Might I mean the individual person might not need the internet right now in a rural region where
Exactly.
there's a shepherd and so on. But times are changing and times are moving, and you can make a difference here for people to also maybe come to your country, to live there, to work there, to work like from everywhere, to be also
Exactly.
able to
That's
educate your kids everywhere, you just where you want to be, and you can work remotely with a company from another country. This is more and more to come, of course, and so you can attract those kind of people as well who might have a high level of education and might be able to
exactly.
work on a high level and to yeah and to power your economy, right, in the end.
Exactly. But when we look at the business side, for example, I have a data here from 2018 that businesses that were connected to the internet using online banking were only 89% of the 89, probably a little bit higher, but it's so there's still online banking is not really everywhere as we may assume. Or the businesses using the internet in the value chain. This is all what you need for your business
Yeah.
connected online.
Yeah.
Only around 78% were using it.
Yeah.
Or online sales channels using the internet for sales were only 18%. So we
18.
see
Yeah.
18. So it's very low.
Okay.
And we see that the one that pushing electronic commerce
Yeah.
Let's say that are pushing the market are electronic commerce and fintech are the ones pushing the market. They are the ones that generated the most unicorns. For example, there is a site, it's similar to, it's the competition, let's say, to Amazon. It's called Mercado Libre, and it's worth $31 billion. Because most people in Latin America order through them because they can deliver to their houses. We have to think about it that, for example, Amazon don't have a, let's say, a location in the different countries, or
Yeah.
it's not present. So when you order, they have to ship their merchandise from the US. But
Yeah.
Mercado Libre is well distributed in the region, and that's why they have more. They have they are such a huge success.
Yeah.
But if we look at the digital commerce worldwide, and it's really, let's say, I would say it's very sad. I didn't know it was that low. Only 2% in Latin America, or only 2% is the share of Latin America in the digital commerce. That's very low of the worldwide e-commerce. I mean, you might assume it's higher than that, but when I saw 2%, I said, 2%. That's really
Almost nothing
not
compared to the percentage of people living.
too low. And one of the issues is online banking, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. I
If
mean,
if you cannot pay,
yeah.
how can you pay? I mean, normally when you order, you pay using your online banking. But if you don't have it,
Right.
then it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. So the internet connection first, online banking, and then
Exactly.
things can start.
And also another problem for this digital commerce or e-commerce is the online consumer protection is weak, and also data protection. That's unless you have really strict rules. But what does it help me when I order something through the internet and they are really, let's say, hackers?
Yeah.
I pay something and I don't get my merchandise. But if I don't have any protection, or the country doesn't have any laws to protect the consumer, then you will be skeptic and you say, I'm not going to order anything. Last time I ordered, I didn't get anything and I lost my money.
Yeah. Those are like regulatory problems.
Exactly.
Which is like
And
next level after having some reliable internet in the first place.
But that's a need, because if I hear people on the street or my friends talking about it, I say, yeah, well, do I need a better internet connection? I only need it for WhatsApp or whatever. Then I'm not planning to buy anything online because my friend just lost money. The other guy next door told me about this and that, and so I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
So they need a huge improvement.
Henry, for this improvement, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation, I think you already dropped some words on this about potential projects, funding projects or development projects in Latin America to make this reality one day, to bring internet to more people, or maybe to even the last one there. Can you talk about this again? What you found here, or maybe you know as well what's existing? I think you told some examples from Peru, right?
Yeah, in Peru, for rural areas. I know that there are some initiatives to provide internet, let's say, to those other regions. On the one hand, for example, I mean, I don't want to criticize any company because, for example, if I see the project that is Telefonica is doing together with Facebook and the International Development Bank to provide services, that means if a private company is doing that, like Facebook, they're interested in something else. And also in other countries, what they call the network neutrality. The operators are offering some, are not, let's say, your data usage is not counted when for some services. For example, if you use WhatsApp and Facebook, the usage of those two on those two sites don't count towards your data usage. So on the one hand, it's good for you because you say, wow, I can't use those two services,
Mm.
and I don't use my
For free.
data. But on the other hand, it's limiting your choices, and that's why they criticize that it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't be limited just to two services. And another statistic that I found is that more than half of the sites that are used in Latin America are outside Latin America, are not locally. Only Chile has like 46% of the sites that are searched are from Chile in Chile.
Yeah.
But in the other countries, you always look outside your local region. So that means your local businesses are not really somehow accessed by the population.
Yeah.
So it's not. So that's something that should be somehow promoted, that people access, like they always say here all the time, buy local.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's important, because I mean, if you don't sponsor your neighbor, then you cannot expect that that your neighbor will grow or will do better. If you support always the big ones or the ones that are outside your region, then it's not going to help. So
I mean, that's just a matter of fact, Henry. I think that everything which is trying to grow from a small plant, being regional, they definitely also have to compete at one point or another with those big players in the market, and they need to find
the niche
solutions
market,
with in the market, and they need to be attractive as well to their customers, to their potential customers. This is definitely something which you need to meet as well here as an expectation. We also do have contacts with a really nice project from Spain. I think it's no problem to mention it here, which is GoofyNet, and they are also providing community solutions for internet access, and they are in the market, I guess, for around 15 years now, and it's a really great project. I really like it, and it's 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 meeting all these expectations because it's running since for 15 years now. It's sustainable. I mean, they are not profit maximizing in any way, but when we talk to them, they also explain to us that people are willing to maybe also pay a little extra, if they can, of course, for this local region service, because they know each other, they know the entrepreneurs providing the internet there, and this is like a really nice example that things like this are working, and they can compete also with the big players in their market in Spain.
Exactly. I mean, going back again, that's what I mentioned regarding the involvement of the local communities.
Yes.
Why do they support them? Because they know this is the guy that is behind it. I know the guy. But if I don't know the person is sitting, at the desk with the best comfort 300 kilometers away.
Yeah.
How am I to support that guy? But if the guy that is providing my service lives next door or plays with me, let's say I meet him on Sunday playing soccer or whatever, then it works.
It's also important that you can go somewhere to complain, right?
Exactly, that you can complain on the field. What did you do there?
Yeah, I mean, you could knock at the door at first to talk to them, but it's better
customer service.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. But another issue that that is important, or when we're talking about rural communities and so on, is the children, because I found out that 46% of children, let's say of the children, around 32 million between the ages 5 and 12, live in homes without internet connection. 46% of the children in Latin America.
Latin America.
Between the ages of 5 and 12.
How many again?
32 million children.
Yeah.
So that's, and if we think these ages between 5 and 12, that's what the ages when you are mostly interested in, let's say, exploring the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that opportunity to explore the world at that age, once you are, let's say, once you are older, then you probably have no interest at all in doing something about it.
Absolutely.
Or only a small percentage will do something.
Yeah. So right now
that means this is
we can only hope for them that like at least a school or a library will have some kind of internet access or whatever, right?
yeah, but when we talk about homeschooling or having opportunities to do something on their own,
yeah, absolutely. Like
either for
individual time,
entertainment or for information,
yeah,
they don't have that access. So that means we have here a population that is growing up with this gap.
yeah,
And if we consider this gap, what the impact will be that they don't qualify for most jobs in the future.
exactly.
If they look for a job, they expect them that you are able to use the internet. They will be like almost they expect you that you know how to comb your hair if you have something or to brush your teeth. So that's, but if they don't have it, that means we have here a huge problem.
It's definitely it's a huge problem. It's yeah, it's not only the economy today, but also and more, even more in the future. Yeah,
Exactly.
and it's really it's making me like personally sad, of course, to some extent.
Right.
We're
And
talking
I
about
found
kids
another.
don't having
Right.
this chance and opportunity, and yeah, but
And but
I'm
for
also
example,
Mhm.
right now, sorry, because
No,
what I want to mention that, for example, the employment in IT in Latin America is only, look over all the jobs, is only 1.6% for male and 0.9% for female. It's very low. The people that work in IT in Latin America,
yeah. I mean, I don't know the numbers here in Europe or in the US, maybe as a comparison,
but
but
are much higher than
yeah, I can
that. But
imagine that.
these figures are very low.
Yeah,
Or for example, in new technologies, when we talk, for example, about artificial intelligence, which they say, I mean, of course, if this will happen, will have a huge impact on also on the economies and development, so on.
yeah,
There are only 5 countries that are working or about to work in this technology. I found that Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, and Uruguay are are doing something in artificial intelligence. So it's really not to, let's say, if I analyze the figures, what I found out about this study from CEPAL is an organization part of the, let's say they do it from Latin America, but it's part of the United Nations. So they depend. So but it's for the, specifically for to address the Latin American region.
yeah.
And these figures, what I can conclude out of this study that was published last year,
Mhm.
is that really the region is not really that advanced and there is still a lot to, to be done. Even so, when we see that or when we might think that a lot of people have access to the internet and they are doing well, the countries, but it's not true.
Yeah,
And that's really, really sad.
absolutely.
It's only a small
I,
percentage of the population that
yeah,
has the same level as we have here
yeah.
in Europe.
I absolutely agree that this is a lot of leaves a lot of room to go get working, to go to get to work, and
Exactly, there is a lot of.
we also have yeah we're working together with partners also in Latin America and in Argentina, and we also have some insights indicating the same which you just said. There are also community-based approaches, and there are also like in the mountains, like completely forgotten regions, where it's even hard to have some mobile connection or any kind of connection as well. And but I'm also happy that we're about to start a new project, which I could also work on in part time, and we are trying to advance exactly those topics which we just discussed in the last
Exactly.
minutes, I think. Henry, I think we can make a point here.
Exactly. We
Uh,
can just conclude it.
yeah,
What I would say about the whole situation in Latin America when I compare it is
mm,
that there is still a lot of work to be done.
yeah. This
There
is
is no
bad
no.
and good
I
news.
mean, based on my, I mean, I was also surprised to read it. I was assuming that let's say the figures that I just mentioned before were
Yeah,
much better than what I found out.
than what you
So that
expected it to be,
means
right? From your own
we
experience.
expect, let's say, so we expect that due to the pandemic and the need that there should be better the telecommunication, let's say, a network is more accessible to more population and better quality and speed, so on. That will help to push the continent further.
Yeah.
Unless they do it, I mean, it's always shown. I mean, I have one data that I would just to mention
Mm-hmm.
as the last item,
Yeah.
because I found that the World Bank says that for a 10% increase in high-speed internet connections, the GDP rate rises by 1.4%. So that means it's not just having the people connected, but having the people connecting is good for the economies and for the countries themselves. So that's what I would like to say as the last statement. And I also would like to thank you, Martin, for the invitation to participate in this podcast. And I'm looking forward to see how things develop in the future.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much,
much.
Henry, for these kind words, and also thanks for participating in the podcast today. Also, thanks for listening to all you out there, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And we'll see each other next time again. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.